Hello grade 8 students, welcome to Math with Mr. S. This morning we continue our look at data management and how we represent data graphically, and specifically this morning we will take a look at drawing circle graphs, sometimes called pie graphs. We've looked at this before where you're given a percent circle, and you may recall with a percent circle it's nicely broken into 100 different pieces, so you can take a percent and just put it straight in. But today we're going to take it a little further and look at what happens if you don't have a percent circle. You just have a circle, and you need to create each sector with the correct number of degrees. So that's the job today. Now here's the data we're going to use. It's a little bit spread out because I wanted to leave some room for calculations here. But what we have is the different methods that students in a particular survey used to get to school. Biking, walking, taking the bus, or going by car. This is the number of students that took each mode of transportation, and we're going to want to represent that in a pie chart or pie graph. So before we get right into that work, there are a few basics we need to recall and be familiar with, and one is that every fraction that you write is really a division statement. And it is no accident that the symbol for division, seen here, really kind of represents a fraction. You have something over something, and that's really no accident. So if I have a fraction like 3 out of 5, that is really the same thing as saying 3 divided by 5. So that's an important thing to remember. That's the way that we get from a fraction to a decimal value, using that division. The other thing we want to bear in mind is that when we have a decimal, the way we change it to a percent, and again this is review, is that we take that decimal and we shift it 2 places to the right. So this as a percent is really 38.621%. And then that's really way too much accuracy sitting there, and we'll never be able to graph that. So when it comes to doing pie charts, we are always going to change our percentages to the nearest whole number. So we look to the next place after. In this case we have a 6. That means we're rounding up. 5 or higher we round up. Below 5 we round down. So this rounds up to 39%. So these are the two main calculating tools we'll be using as we go to graph our information. Okay, so let's begin by creating the circle that we're going to need for this particular graph. And you'll see here, this is probably very typically what you will have in your math sets at home. And so what you want to do is get that pencil point as close to the metal point as you can, and then tighten it up. So it kind of sits like that. Lead and metal close to the same position on your compass. I have found that pencil doesn't show up really well in my videos, so I'm going to be using this where I have, again, it's just like a normal compass, but I have taped or elasticed on a marker. But apart from that, it's pretty much the same as what you have at home. So I'm going to create this circle, make it a reasonable size on my page, and you want to kind of keep note of where is the center of your circle, because you need that in order to accurately draw the sectors on your circle graph. So I'm noting that my center is right there, and then I'm just going to put a dot there so that I remember that. And that's the center of my circle. To begin creating the sectors on my circle, I'm going to simply connect that center point to the edge of my circle, and where you do that really doesn't matter, but I'm going to just do it straight up to here. But again, you can do it anywhere you like. So that's kind of the first arm of the first sector. Start at the center, go out to the outside of the circle. Now the question we need to answer is, how many degrees is my first sector going to be? So let's go back to our data. The first sector I'm going to put in is the percent of students that took a bike to school. So how do we convert this 11 students into a number of degrees on my pie graph? The first thing we need to do is represent these 11 students as a fraction of our total number of students. And if we add all of these up, we have 11 plus 13 is 24, and then that's 50, and then 65. 65 is our total number of students. So the number that bike to school, represented as a fraction, would be 11 out of 65. Now recall how many degrees are in a complete circle. Well, half a circle, you can see here, if you start at the 0 and come all the way around, half a circle is 180. So yeah, the full circle is 360 degrees around. So we can say that we want 11/65 of those 360 degrees in order to figure out the sector angle. So the full calculation is the 11/65 times the 360. So now we can go ahead and put that in on the calculator. So let's take that 11/65 and remember that as a fraction that is a division statement. So I put 11 divided by 65 into my calculator. And I'm going to pause here for a moment because this has given me a nice decimal answer to what this fraction is. And when we create graphs, we always want to write in them what our percentages are. So we're going to remember that when we have that decimal, we can just move it over 2 places, and that will give us the percent. So if I do that here, I move it over 2 places, 1, 2, I'm at 16.9 and then some, and that rounds to 17. So I'm going to take a moment to just write the percentage down so I remember it for when I'm labeling my graph, and then I'll continue with my calculation, which you can see here was to multiply by 360. And so there we have the number of degrees. Again, we're going to round to the nearest degree. So if we have 60.9, that's going to round to 61 degrees. So that then is my sector angle. 61 degrees. So we can now use that to come back to our circle graph and create a sector that is 61 degrees. So we need to recall how we use this guy. Most of your protractors at home should have this crosshair here underneath the half moon. There are variations. Some people will have just a dot there or an open circle there. But whichever way it is, that's the point where my crosshair is right there. You want that always to go right on the vertex of the angle you're going to make. The second thing that needs to happen is if you look out across here, you'll see the 0 is right there. So this is the 0 line, and that always needs to line up with one of your angle arms. So I need that 0 line to be exactly on that first sector arm that I drew, right here. And then look for that 0 and work your way up from there to the angle you want. We said 61 degrees, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and the 1 is just beyond that 60, right about there. And so I can connect my center up to that dot. And this is 61 degrees exactly, and that represents the percentage that I had here. So that really literally is 17% of this entire circle represented in this wedge. So now we can label it. We can say that this is the students that bike to school, and that is 17%. So if that makes sense to you already, please feel free to move on to the exercises for today. But I'm going to put another sector on yet with you just to make sure that everybody understands. And then hopefully you'll be set up to do those exercises. So let's look at the next sector. These are the students who walk to school. There are 13 of them. still a total of 65. So our new fraction is 13/65, which will have to get multiplied by the 360 degrees in a circle. So let's get the calculator out again. We will clear all of this, and let's do 13 divided by 65. Well, that's a nice even number, 0.2. Now, we need to move this over 2 places to get that into a percent. So that will be 20%, which I'm going to record here. So we have that to label later. And then I'm going to finish my calculation, which is the times 360. And that is 72 degrees for this sector. So now we need to create a 72 degree sector on here. Once again, this point needs to go right on the vertex, and the 0 arm needs to line up with one of the arms of the new sector. And then we come up the 72 degrees from 0. So up this way, just past 70, there's the 72. I connected those up, and I have my new sector. So that now, let's look back at our data again to see what we were representing. So that is the people who walk, and it's 20% of the total. Now, I'm not going to finish it off right now. However, I would like to point out that once you finish doing the bus sector and you put that on, the last one will automatically be done for you if you've done your work accurately. It will show you the amount that remains after you finish the third one. And the last thing that you'll need to do when that's done is, of course, to label this accurately. Give it a good title that makes sense for what's in there. So a title here might be Methods of Transport to School. Once you have a title and each sector is properly labeled, you have a complete graph. Okay, don't forget to check classwork for your assignment for today. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see you on the next one.